You're listening to Trek FM.
Hello and welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's 50th Anniversary Rewatch of Star Trek, where we look at all 729 episodes from beginning to end. I'm Mike from Stage 9.
And I'm Daniel.
And today we're going to be looking at two episodes of Deep Space Nine, The Sword of Kahless, and Our Man Bashir. So let's get started with The Sword of Kahless. In this episode, is it Core or is it Kang? I get all my K's mixed up.
I believe it's Core.
Core, okay. Core comes to DS9 and he gets a little tipsy and he starts talking to Worf about how he and Dax are going to go off looking for the Sword of Kahless, which is, I get the impression it's kind of like the Klingon equivalent of the Holy Grail or something along those lines. And Worf's like, oh, I would totally want to come along with you and help you find that. And Core is like, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go. And Dax, Core, and Worf go off to find the Sword of Kahless. And hijinks ensue. So what did you think about the Sword of Kahless?
This is good. This is good stuff. Really good stuff. You know, I'm actually not crazy about Klingon stories in general. Most of the time when you go to Kronos, I'm kind of okay with not doing that. But this is cool because this is focusing on these characters. You know, we've known Core. Well, we knew Core in the original series, of course. But this version of Core, the older Core, from the previous episode that had featured him and the other two, which I can't remember the name of.
Blood Oath, I believe.
Blood Oath. Thank you very much. So we get to see his relationship with Dax. And now we get to throw Worf into the mix. So, you know, you get these three characters that you presumably like a lot. And this kind of important world-building artifact, you know, could change the balance of power for the Klingons, which seems to happen quite a bit. Maybe they shouldn't be so fragile for such tough guys. But, you know, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And it's basically, you know, the moral of the story is essentially, you know, power corrupts. You know, we can't handle the responsibility of have this amazing thing, you know. So they beam it into space, which is kind of silly, but I like it. It's cool. It's, you know, when you get these two characters that are obsessed with this item and the power that it kind of represents. Yeah, you can totally see this happening. You know, this is a story as old as forever. You know, the two characters go for some immensely powerful object and betray each other along the way. And then, of course, we have the neutral Dax to kind of even things out a little bit. But because we like these characters, because we know these characters, and we get to see them play off of each other, it works really, really well.
Yeah, I enjoy this episode. I don't think that it's, you know, elite level DS9 by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's pretty good. I think it starts off really strong, and you kind of really get to see, in a lot of ways, sort of like the foundation of the relationship between Worf and Dax, because you see that they have like a lot in common. And I know that they've been starting to build this up for a few episodes or whatever, but I think that this is kind of like another cool, you know, look at that. And I like the character of Core. I think that it's cool how you can see this guy and how they brought in this legacy guy from, you know, the original series, and you see him now as an older guy and how he's flawed and everything, and I think that works well. I guess the whole, you know, thing where this is like the, you know, the powerful item which is going to, you know, corrupt everyone, that works okay. I kind of start to lose interest when they start turning on each other, but I think that more than anything I like the stuff with Dax and how she's basically just like, I am not going to put up with any of this stuff. It's like when she shoots the two of them, you know, I think that's pretty great. And yeah, on the whole, it's not a bad episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, to try to put it politely, at that point it's a measuring contest. between Worf and Core, and she's having none of it, which is awesome. I do like that. Also, I do like the prop of the Sword of Kahless. The Batleth itself is a pretty badass weapon in general, but this version of it is super cool, and it looks old, and it looks like something you wouldn't want to mess with. So I like that part of it. It actually looked like an artifact.
Yeah, it almost looked like it was made out of like stone or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yep.
It had a very weathered look to it, which is cool for sure. Yeah.
And then you get on the middle of it, you get the weathered Klingon emblem, which I assume maybe would be the origin of that as their kind of thing. So that was cool. Again, beaming into space is kind of on the nose for a show that normally does things a little more subtly. But it is what it is, and it gets to float. And I guess until the next time... I think part of this, why I like this episode so much too, is it feels very comfortable to me as a TNG guy, because this Worf stuff we've seen again and again and again and again. Worf butting heads with someone more established, someone older, someone who is more into the culture than he is, and him talking about what the real honor is and blah blah blah, the real power. And, he's been mixed up in this whole thing. Although Core calls him Gowron. He doesn't say Gowron. Gowron. So he was there for Gowron and Kahless and stuff. So it's cool just to see all that stuff kind of keep going.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, should we move on to our next episode for today?
Let's do it.
Which is Our Man Bashir. This is the episode where Bashir is playing his James Bond program on the holodeck, and Garak walks in on him and wants to see what it's like to be a fake spy on Earth in the 60s. And then there's a transporter accident, which means that they need to throw all the people's patterns into the transporter, and now they've got to play this for real. So, yeah, what did you think about Our Man Bashir?
It's fun, right? I think that's all it aims to be. The entire structure of the plot, basically the technobabble of why is this, why are these stakes, why do they even matter, and why are these characters, why do we care? It's secondary to the fun of seeing our characters in this James Bond scenario, and I love it because I'm a huge Bond fan as well, and so this is fun to see them play on the tropes with the names and everything, and kind of to see Garak, of course, who's also a fantastic character, but to see his deconstruction of like, this is what you think this is like I guess I joined the wrong intelligence organization because this is not anything like how it's actually like. So that was fun. Yeah.
I mean, I like it a lot too. I'm also a big Bond fan, and it is cool to kind of like see them playing off of all those, key Bond elements and everything, and like you're saying, having Garak in there to comment on it, I think is pretty great. That was a pretty smart idea. While the problem was definitely a MacGuffin and kind of didn't really matter, I do give them props for not making it a malfunctioning holodeck this time around. They made something else malfunctioning transporter, which I guess is the one thing which malfunctions more than the holodeck, but whatever. Though the thing that I kept on thinking was, like, this episode was written by Ron Moore, and their whole thing is like, the human brain has so much, memory. There's so much storage that, like, we can't fit it in the shit. We need to, like, wipe out this entire computer from this space station the size of, like, a city, like a small city. And yet, like, 10 years later or something like that, Ron Moore wrote the pilot for Caprica. And one of the things in there was like, do you know how much space? Because it's pretty much the same thing. Like, someone's going to die, so they download their consciousness into a computer, And they're like, how much space the human memory takes up? It's like 256 gigs. Like, that's it. And then they actually, like, changed it for the DVD to, like, terabytes or something. But the whole point is, like, there's nothing there. Like, humans are stupid. They don't know anything, But I'm like, wow, I guess someone read a technical journal or a medical journal or something in the past 10 years and completely changed his stance. And Whatever. But yeah, I think that this episode is really, really solid. I think that the performances are really great. I think that Alexander Siddig makes a really good James Bond. And also, we've talked about the sort of retconning of Dr. Bashir and everything. And there's a moment in here which I think actually works better with the retcon. The moment where he shoots Garak in the neck.
Oh,
Because you watch it and you're like, he's going to shoot him in the leg or something, but no, he shoots him in the neck, which has the same effect. But then there's that line where Garak's like, how did you know you weren't going to miss? And he's like, why did you think that I wasn't trying to kill you? And now, with the future knowledge of future Bashir, we can be like, oh, he intentionally did that. He's a marksman, right? So he went, that was very intentional. But whatever.
He used the world's tiniest pistol.
Yeah. I imagine that
ridiculous.
doesn't have much stopping power. You could probably shoot him like point blank in the head, and it still wouldn't kill him, right?
It would just bounce off, I would assume, especially off of his leathery skin. Not to be racist or anything. I will say this: Avery Brooks would make a wonderful Bond villain.
Oh yeah, man.
He was chewing up that scenery the whole time, and I loved it because we talked about it. He's unique. He's got his quirks, and it works really well in that context. So that was really, really fun to see. And of course, like all the other characters do get to have their fun. Nana with her terrible Russian accent is good stuff. It's fun. I love all the tropes that they play with. Not quite going into Austin Powers territory, but still being silly and campy, and having fun at the Connery era Bond stuff, and it's good stuff. And from what I understand, I think they got chased down for copyright issues after this. I'm pretty sure that's why we never saw the return of this character and this stuff again. I don't think they were very happy about it.
Do we? I thought we did see them again. No.
Oh, there's that one scene in the car. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I thought it was this one.
Yeah, could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but it's good stuff. I really like this episode a lot. You're having a good time, and of course, you get to further the Bashir Garak relationship, and they're so great together. So, and of course, Garak's great on his own, anyways. But
Yeah.
Oh, also, Cisco's character name is Hippocrates Noah. And he's trying to flood the world. It's so funny. It's so brilliant. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Eddington. Sorry. I just want to point out Eddington is kind of the hero of this episode.
Yeah.
Him and Rom kind of work together, and they fix the MacGuffin of the week. But
Yeah.
It's cool.
The whole time I kept on thinking, like, man, in a very short period of time, Eddington's gonna wish that he did not do any of this stuff. He's gonna wish that he was just like, whatever, should have let him. He probably, as he's like in like a prison or something like that, he's like, I should have just. Why was I trying so hard to save those patterns? But
I could have just tried like 10% less, and it would have looked like I was still trying. See, here's the thing too, and I don't know the back history, the writing history of Deep Space Nine super well. So, but I assume they introduced, because the writers of Deep Space Nine were brilliant people, and they thought ahead and they planned ahead. And I assume that they started putting him in these episodes knowing full well that he was going to do what he does, and it makes it all the better because, like I said, we were on the first episode that he appears, and now we've been on like 3 or 4 episodes, and it's just enough where you're starting to become familiar, you feel comfortable with them, you don't suspect anything. So when the flip turns, and it happens, it actually feels the audience feel. I know we're talking about another episode down the road, but you feel that betrayal just as much as the characters do.
Yeah, for sure. And I do love the moment where, they rematerialize on the Defiant, and O'Brien's like, what'd you do to the ship? Because if you look at it, like, rejoined, like, the Defiant, gets beat to hell, they're like, it'll be fine in a couple weeks. And then the very next episode is Starship Down, right? Which is all about the thing, like, about to explode. And now we have this one, and it's like the Defiant. It's just, it is a tough little ship, but boy, they do not treat it well at all. They are constantly beating the crap out of that ship. So, yeah. Oh, well.
Good
it's,
stuff.
it's,
Good
it's like the dude's car from The Big Lebowski.
There you go.
And then in season 7, they finally do it. They finally kill their freaking car. But whatever. All right. Well, any final thoughts on these episodes, or does that pretty much cover it?
I think that does it.
All right. Well, Daniel, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Twitter at OneUpDan. That's the number 1, not the word.
And you can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K, and you can also find me right here on Trek FM doing Stage 9 with John Mills, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. All right. It's been 16 days now. I am not coming back tomorrow, but I think you'll be back tomorrow with 2 more episodes of Star Trek, Resistance and Homefront.